The guy is ridiculously talented, and so when Dribble recommended we get in touch with him, I was like, obviously, let's do it. So for some reason, I asked him to meet me for pizza because it was next to my house. And all of a sudden, I see this dude zooming around on a skateboard, and he comes in, and Richie and I are there, and he could not have been more humble or kind or warm, and I knew this was a great fit. Not only is his story fantastic, it fits our theme of minimal perfectly, but all in all, he's just a fantastic guy. If you've seen his work, obviously, it's incredibly impressive. Even more impressive, he's actually only been a designer for 3 years. Graduated with a degree in computer science, realized, well, this shit sucks, and decided that he was going to become a designer. A few years later, the guy is world class. If you've heard of him, it's probably because you've heard the story of a tattoo. I quickly kind of went over what happened. Unfortunately, a few years back, Kirk's father passed away, and shortly after, he decided he wanted to honor him by, creating this tattoo. And he started by, I'm not going to reveal too much of it, but he started just by sketching, and that sketch became, a higher fidelity drawing. That drawing became a true illustration. Then he's like, you know what, I'm going to get this tattooed on me. And so he did it. And he shared it to the world, and it got picked up quite a bit greater than I think he ever expected. I'm not going to reveal any more. He's here to share the story behind that story. I'm going to just kind of pass it over to you. So please, everyone, give a big, warm welcome to Kirk Wallace.
Oh, man. I don't know which side.
Wherever you want to go.
This one's good. I camped in the middle. Because I already am. All right, well, thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, all the sponsors. Thanks, Creative Mornings. Thanks for my friends for coming out. And thanks for you guys for coming. It's really early. I know. I have big cards. I don't know why necessarily. I guess because why make them small? And I have slides on them, so it'll help me. So, I've never done a talk. I've never done a speech. I did one in college. I blew them out of the water, if I remember correctly. The grade was AAA+. But really, I haven't done this, and I don't really know what I'm doing. But I have rehearsed a lot, and I've put a lot of effort into it, so I'm really surprised and really humbled that so many people came. There's not many chairs open. It would have been fine if nobody came, I guess. It would have been less stress, but... Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Good? Dan, you can hear me?
Yeah.
You're the furthest one away.
Yeah. You're good, man. Perfect.
So as far as I know, this kind of like booked up and it sold out, and everybody was really happy about that. And there's a waiting list and stuff like that, and so that's great. I'm really happy that you guys came up to see me. And I want to go with one more disclaimer and kind of let you know that I am overwhelmed and that I kind of feel like I'm shaking. Might not be. But I'm nervous. And I drew these so that they would direct the attention away from me a little bit. And I drew them quickly, and I stayed up till 5 the previous night doing them. So, but I really like them, so hopefully they can take the eyes off me. So in order for me to feel comfortable today, and in any situation that I'm in, whether it's designing a project or tweeting or talking today, is I try to take this approach with kind of finding confidence in my vulnerabilities. So that is facing them head on, letting you guys know that I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And same thing with my work, every day that I wake up and I can do what I do and I can draw for a living, that's amazing. but I don't know why. One step at a time. So hopefully I don't pass out or throw up. I ignored the donuts. Keith kept telling me to have a donut. And I mean, this seems like a good idea, but I picked up a frosted one and it was like way too sugary, and I felt like I was gonna throw up, so I didn't. And then I had a little bit of another donut, so I don't think I'm gonna. And I don't think I'm gonna pass out. But if I do, I'm gonna get up. And I'm gonna roll through it. And it'll be fine. It's gonna be good. So I guess the next thing I do is, let me kind of continue off the story that Keith alluded to about my dad. And I say my dad. Don't feel bad. This is definitely a sad beginning to my story, but that's not the point. And I don't want you guys to feel sorry for me or anything like that. But it's never really been a dark place for me when he did die. It sucked a lot. Nobody wants to lose their dad, right? That just super sucked. But I never felt like fundamentally wronged or damned, or something bad happened to me or I was stolen from. And that was a lot because my family, my dad, my mom was here, and they all really hooked it up for me since day zero. I've had everything that I've needed, and so I feel really happy to what I have and what I will always have. And I think there's a lot of people that maybe don't have what I had, so I just try to be grateful for it. So my point is don't get bummed out on the beginning of the story. He did die, and I'm going to tell you guys about that, but that's not the point. So, Dad got sick. This is my dad. This is him with decent health in his older age, but maybe 3-4 years. I got back from Hawaii, took that picture up because I thought he looked cool. Thought he had like a sort of an Elvis Costello thing going on. So, took this picture. He was in decent health, so I want you guys to meet my dad. And I can make this story very long and vivid because when he got sick, every detail mattered. And it was really important that both Mom and I, and my brothers, but it was Mom and I, we were living all together, and we did a really good job of keeping dates, keeping all these details. So it's hard for me not to recur the story without being painfully detailed. So I'm going to try my best not to do that, of course. There's also the short story. So that's what I'm going to go with. But these are all just excuses and things saying like, please forgive me. You don't even have to forgive me, who cares? So, in summer of 2012, June, Dad was sick for a few weeks. Not terribly sick, just kind of sick. He didn't feel great. And he was going into a vacation. And Mom was like, why are you going to go on vacation feeling ill? So let's go to the doctors, get some blood work done. And he went and got the blood work done, and I think it was, it was the same day he got back, or it was on the way back, or it was a few days after, and they called us, and they called him and said, you need to be here now. Your blood work, the numbers are all done. And so we did, and we went back in. And basically, at that point, he was, even on his way in, he was having a heart attack without knowing it. He had a 14-hour heart attack. And then he had, but it wasn't like 14 hours of heart attack. He didn't know he was having it. So, I don't know, maybe it's not a heart attack, but basically. And that was caused from bladder cancer, news to us. And that created kind of a kidney failure, which backed up potassium levels, and he got sick, and really sick. So we were in and out of the hospital for a long time, for 6-7 months. And it kind of kept getting worse. But it wasn't miserable by any means. We had 6-7 months where there was enough recovery, and there was enough, Dad kept he was really strong. We had enough recovery to enjoy things. He never lost his integrity or his intelligence or his love. He was always there. Physically, he got beat up, even in his older years, which this isn't it. My point is that this is a surprise to me, I think. But Dad was, very strong. He was quite the opposite of me. He was kind of burly. And that's a picture of me and I think Kevin, my middle-aged brother, who is about 10 years older than me, when, I don't know, Kevin looks like he's about 28 or 6 there. So, like I was saying, he never lost his love, he never lost his integrity, he was always there mentally, and that was the best part. And speaking of intelligence, when he was on bed rest from heart attack, and he had a open heart surgery and stuff like that, which was a success. And when he had that, we were on bed rest a lot, and so a lot of the time was spent around the TV, right? Because there was no skateboarding or no roller coasters after that. So we watched a lot of Jeopardy, and that was something that I remember watching with my mom and watching with Dad as I was little. And I know that Mom and I would say, why don't you go on the damn show and make us some money? Because he got every single one of them right. And he got them right before they did, albeit on the couch, but he got them all right. And he said, there's no way that I would be able to go on there and not cuss at somebody, cuss out Alex Trebek, or when he gets it wrong, say. And so even if he got through it, they wouldn't air the episode because they have to bleep out. And I don't think I've seen people be rude on Jeopardy, but I've never seen them bleep out cuss words. So, but nonetheless, he was definitely a rock star on the couch with it. End of my story. So, when we were watching Jeopardy when he was ill, he kind of said once during a commercial, and I remember it very vividly and also kind of not vividly, but essentially it was a commercial, and I think it may have come off of a question, but he'd always loved the universe and things like that, curious. And he said, when I get, and to quote him on the cusses, he said, when I get some fucking muscle back on my arm, because he was very depleted, I want to get a tattoo with crop circles on my arm. And kind of jokingly, I just said, if you don't do it, I will. And it was more of like, if you don't do it, I will. Kind of just to motivate him to get better, so that he could get the tattoo. And then a month later, Dad died. And so the first thing that I did was I cried a ton. I was sad. And then I took time off from work. And at the time, my body was worn down. Mom's was as well. We were working around the clock. This was in January 2013. So June 2012, January 2013. So whatever, 6 months, 7 months. And I was working a full-time job from home, luckily. So I was able to be with Dad a lot because Mom was not working from home. She was working to keep the health insurance. So I worked a full-time job from home. I was freelancing at night because I had really just gotten fully into design and illustration. And I was able to do that. And then I was starting with a company, WagePoint, who I'm the current creative director for, and I've stuck with them. But they have a lot of work too. And so I was working like crazy. And I took all of that time off, of course, to more, for a couple weeks, 2 weeks maybe. And I didn't take any projects, of course, except this one. And it was a matter of fact that I needed it. I didn't want crop circles when I started. That wasn't my tattoo. I don't want crop circles on my arm. I wasn't opposed to it, but it's not my tattoo. But once he died, I needed those crop circles. There was nothing more important than having that done, other than crying, like I said. First cry, second draw. And I never really had this epiphany where it was like, I just have to draw, that's gonna make everything better, and I just get drawn to it. But it was very matter of fact. Here's another picture of it closer. So Dad couldn't get the tattoo. I felt bad for him. I thought I would. I'd let him live on kind of vicariously through my body. Because we are an extension of our parents, literally, right? Physically, we come from them. And so I thought this would be the best way. And the tattoo flowed out really naturally. I started sketching, I started drawing. I didn't know much about crop circles a little bit. But I drew, and I sketched a lot, and they were not great sketches. And what I came with is this, and this is probably the best way for you to see it. And I think maybe some of you may have seen it. You've seen it on Behance or anywhere, whatever. It got a lot of popularity, I'll get to that later. But essentially, there's crops, right? Crop circles spell dad, D-A-D. The perspective from where you're seeing it here is top down, as if you're a bird or a plane, and then the perspective kind of flips this way, and it's not right, it's incorrect, it's all broken. And that comes from when Dad was recovering from his heart surgery. He, whatever, they knock him out for 1,000 hours, and then he comes back to life, essentially, and all this stuff, and he's got painkillers and all these things, and so he was very loopy, and when he was laying in bed in the hospital in recovery, something that he really mentioned a lot was that his cup was sideways. It wasn't spilling, but everything he was seeing was, he referred to it as waking up on the other side of Wallace, this was positive or whatever. And so his perspective was all weird, kind of broken, and even when he recovered, because even when he was loopy and kind of ill, he was there, and he was observant of what was going on. And so this is something that I picked up off of that, is this perspective flip, and that was something that really added significance to it. The other thing is from Alpha to Omega. And before Dad died, again, kind of in one of his stupors, that's a bad word, I don't know, when he was ill, he wrote us a note or a letter or something. And it essentially said, and we didn't see it until after he passed away, and he wrote on a piece of paper to us, his family, which is my 3 brothers, my mom primarily. Sorry if I forgot brothers. That's all my family. But he wrote, from Alpha to Omega, from the beginning to the end, I've never seen a God so much as I have in my own kids. And so, it's obvious, right? And it's longer than that, but that's the gist of it, is Dad loved his family, and that's all that mattered to him. That's what he did. And so I drew from Alpha to Omega, and I drew him in the middle, because I do not think that he's that yet. I don't have courage, whatever. So I did all of that. And then, being a designer, I shared it. And I shared it very sort of minimally, in that when the tattoo was done, it was like a project. It was a rolling project that I worked on. So I thought that it was interesting. I've always loved watching or reading process blogs or Behance posts. I like Behance a lot because they show sketches and how they came up with it. I prefer blog posts because they're long, and I love Dribble because but I love sketches, and I love seeing people that I think are amazing in illustrating. And I think, wow, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And then I see them post a shitty sketch. And I say, oh, that's me, I can do a shitty sketch. I'm good at that. And so that was something that really got me to where I was. And again, I'm kind of new to all of it. I've always loved design, but I really haven't been doing it long. And so I owe a lot of that to the design community. People sharing their ideas, people sharing how they come to make things happen. And so I love that. So that's what I've always done. And that's not exactly why I did this, but that's just the way I did it. Was I drew, and then I posted, and on my portfolio I would keep it concise, right? But on Behance or a blog post, I would try to show my process and sort of a miniature case study, because that would also teach me how I went and did it. And I could kind of go retrospect on it and think about it. And so I didn't really have any master plan as to how I'm going to post it. I wrote it. I'm not good at writing. I don't like writing. I started to like speaking. But I don't like writing, so I wrote quick, and I wrote crappy, because that wasn't the point. And at the time, I thought the point was just show the sketches, show the thing, designers will like it, other illustrators will think it's cool, and it will kind of be a way of giving back. I might get some follows out of it, might get some work from it, that'd be cool too, sure. But the main idea was not to appeal to a huge audience. And so I wrote it. But I wrote it heartfelt, and I wrote it true, and I wrote the story about it and what happened. And I didn't go into so much detail of how Dad got sick and stuff like that, but I gave context to it so that people could know what the problem was that I was solving. Because design, at its core, and I think even art, is solving a problem. And those problems are always different, but it's important to remember that we are solving problems. So I wrote it, and I wrote it pretty poorly. I kind of I explained why I chose the tool set of minimal, if we could call it minimal. I don't know what I drew. I drew it simply. But I did name it Minimal Tattoo because that seemed like a good buzzword at the time, and I had a feeling in like 2.5 years it was going to be a talk, and it was going to be a book. And so I tied it to that name, and that made a big difference. And I explained why I chose the process I did. The reason I did is because there's a lot of people in here with beautiful tattoos that I could never draw, because you've seen people don't have 4 fingers in real life, and people don't, things like that. I don't draw technically very well, I don't think. And so I knew if I tried to draw tattoos like the one I see there, tattoos like the ones that I wish I could have, it would come out crappy. And I wanted to design it. I didn't want somebody else to design it. I didn't want them to interpret my idea. And so I knew I had to do something that I was comfortable with. And I knew if I drew this, it would not be a good tattoo. And it would look ridiculous. And so I went with this stripped down version with shapes and things at its core that made sense. And all the while, things making sense with a tattoo. I mean, crop circles are shapes, right? And they're really perfect, and that's what's so amazing about them, whether it be some guy that made it or some alien that made it, they're really perfect. So that's a lot of where it came from, in these geometries and stuff like that. And so I wrote a case study, kind of on being hands about how I did it, what tools I used. And I really hoped that everybody was going to care about the process, because that's what I love, right? And interestingly enough, nobody cared about my process at all. And so that sucks. But what they did care about was the story. They cared about the human element of it. They cared that they could relate to it. I think some people cared because they lost their dad. I think some people cared because they lost their grandmother. I think people cared because they never had a dad around to miss. I think maybe some people just literally went through the same exact thing that I did. And surprisingly enough, people related to them. And it told a story, and it was universal. And it wasn't just about, I wasn't just appealing now to designers, which was my target demographic. I was appealing to everybody. And that's something that I had never thought of. And, you know, believe it or not, what are the statistics? 99.99999% of people aren't designers. But they are a demographic because they buy things, they view things, they learn stories, they love stories, they see things, and they tell you that your work is awesome. It doesn't have to be designers. So it's interesting that nobody cared about the process. What they did was they plucked something out of it that wasn't necessarily there in a way. And I thought that was cool. Good thing I didn't grab this, I didn't know. But I pick it up, I was crying. I already look a good shirt, right? So, I posted it, it got popular. And thanks to the internet, it got passed around a lot because people wanted to share stories. And it was everybody sharing. Sorry, repeating myself a little bit. So one morning I woke up and my phone kind of exploded with beeps and tweets and Instagrams and things like that. And like a lot, I got like a couple hundred followers overnight. And I realized that probably some of you are familiar with Behance, of course. It's a portfolio website, essentially owned by Adobe now. And they have sister sites called Inspiration Is and Character Design and stuff like that. And so they're just kind of subsidiary sites that are, they pull things that are inspiring and put it on this site. And they pull things that are great for character design and put it on this site. And they put mine on Inspiration. And that gets a lot of traffic. And so a lot of people were into it and started to share. The point is, people started following me, people were interested in it. I was getting emails from people saying that I was really touching hearts. They were saying that, you know, like I said, people that had suffered from a similar thing. But it was amazing because I was doing something that I did 100% for me and nobody else, but other people were benefiting from it. And that's the best because we're artists, but we're also designers. And so we want people to enjoy what we're doing. So it was working. That was amazing. So now if you Google minimal tattoo or minimal tattoo design, simple tattoo, whatever, I'll be there, front page Google type thing. And that's cool. But my point is that it brings in a lot of traffic. And it brings in a lot of common people, people that, again, aren't necessarily illustrators. And they see it and then they like it. And so now I'm getting commissions to do tattoos. And I'm a little bit over my head and I'm like, well, I've never, I did it for me, I know how to do it for me, but everybody was into it. And so they liked it. And so now I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's the first time I learned, well, I don't need to do everything right now. Let's do it in May, let's do it in January, let's do it far away. And now I'm like booked out like 6 months with tattoo work. And then Wired comes to me, Wired Design blog. They email me and they say, hey, we want to do a write-up on you. And this was interesting because a lot of people were blogging about it, but nobody was interviewing me about it uniquely. And I was really excited because I like Wired, that's cool. And so they posted it, they actually did interview me, it actually went through. What? I won't say the part, sorry. I think that's confidential. But they posted it on like Father's Day, or like the day after Father's Day or the day before, and that was like, it was like perfect, and it just kept getting more perfect. And then like, everybody was happy, my family was happy, for Dad, for me, I was happy, I was getting recognition. There's a lot of cool things going on. And I had all these commissions, and everything was going really well. And so now it's easy, I just keep making these things, I keep making a good amount of money. I've got job security, got all these things. But once I start going with it, well, there's my rise of popularity. I'll just sit here for 4 or 5 minutes. Maybe I'll go back and redo it. But what happened was I hated it. I hated it. Because I wasn't doing, well, let me go back a few steps. When my phone blew up and I got a lot of followers, I first started jokingly saying like, oh, here we go. I'm gonna be a one-hit wonder. This is what I'm gonna do now. Because I had posted stuff in the past, and let's say I got 20 likes. It's got 4,000 likes. And so I'm thinking, oh, well, damn it. I'm happy, but I'm kind of half thinking and jokingly like, oh, here we go. And so I figured, all right, let's say I get 3,000 new followers on Behance. Okay, I can assume that maybe only 10% of these guys are going to care about the other stuff I'm doing, which you see is different. This is what I'm more comfortable with, and I don't want to stick with this either, but I want to expand. I want to do lots of different things. And this is what I'm more comfortable with. This is the story that I like to tell. And I also try this. So, normal style, less likes. Then I post a tattoo commission that I did, 200, 300, 400, 500 likes. And I'm like, man, that's cool, but damn it, don't you guys like my other stuff? And I realized probably not, because when you follow someone, you subscribe to them, and you subscribe to an idea. You subscribe to the fact that I followed Kirk for this tattoo, I expect tattoos. I don't go to Dunkin' Donuts for whatever, pizza. They have pizza though. But you don't go to Dunkin' Donuts for basketballs. You go to Dunkin' Donuts for donuts. You swallow. But now I've got a different type of followers too. I've got followers that I can bring in, I can bait, and I can switch. And I can say, hey, the tattoo's cool, right? But check out this picture I drew of myself. And people are like, yeah, I dig that. But maybe not everyone is like that. And I'm realizing this is where I'm starting to get a little bit bummed out, and this is why I'm hating it. Because the scale's tipping, and I'm realizing most of the people are the first people, the people that only care about the tattoos. And okay, well that's great, so why don't I just keep doing tattoos? What's wrong with me? Other than the fact that I'm getting a little nervous, I'm going to get pigeonholed, and people aren't going to care about my other things. But now there's a new problem. I'm actually stressing about the commissions I'm getting too, because I start realizing I'm sweating over them, and I'm not starting them right away. And I'm talking to my design friends, I'm talking to EJ, and I'm saying, dude, I don't want to, I can't start it. I don't care about somebody else's tattoo. And I'm getting all of these things about the tattoo, and I'm having a hard time starting them. I'm getting intimidated by them. It's not really something, what's happening is I'm being commissioned to do work that I'm not necessarily in love with. And that's creating an issue, because on top of it being, if it was an icon for a website, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, because it's over, it's one and done, it's not that important. It is, but it isn't. I'm just like, I don't care about everybody's thing. But like, it's an icon. If it's a tattoo, and like, that's a big deal. And I've got people
I've got people coming to me, you know, with brand ideas, things that are really important, and I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. But they're not giving me much input, and I'm thinking, well, geez, you guys, you know, this is a tattoo, and they're like, we'll get whatever. I don't care what it is. I just like your style. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with going into a tattoo shop and getting a dolphin jumping over the moon. Really, I mean, that's fine. But for me, that's not what I'm interested in doing at all. I'm interested in telling a story that's unique, similar to mine. It doesn't have to be about a death. It doesn't even have to be about something monumental. But I want people to be really interested in doing it. And that seems to be kind of not what's happening. I'm actually getting emails. This is rude. But I mean, it's rude. They email me, and I've got people saying, hey, I'm going to plagiarize your tattoo. But maybe instead I'll throw you a bone. Can you design one for me? And I said, well, that's kind of a lousy choice of words. You were going to steal my work and put it on your body forever, which is weird enough. And they say also, I really love the story. All right, so now you're going to take this tattoo about my dad dying that I put on me. You're going to put it on for your life. And I'm really sorry if it was any of you guys. It's weird. And if, I think, well, actually, factually, there's something wrong with that. But, you know, that's not what I'm into. And then I've got some guy, these are funny stuff. I've got a guy that comes and he says, I'm going to get your tattoo put on me. Okay, all right. But can you just explain to me what it means? So that way when people tell me, and I don't know if these are, but I do know that they are English-speaking people, so it's not a misuse of Google Translate or anything like that. They know, and they say they saw the story and they loved it and stuff like that. And then I've got this guy that says, I don't know the story, but I'm going to get it. So can you just tell me what it is? And this is when I started getting frustrated, and I started responding to these and being like, what are you guys doing? This isn't the way, you know, and I get a little bit irritated and kind of rude with them. So now I'm struggling to be excited for all these commissions. And I've still got a couple on the line. I'm saying, all right, well, I mean, I'm not going to bail on it. I'm going to give it 100% my all, but I'm done taking it. I don't want to do it anymore. Because I'm scared of it. I'm scared that I'm going to get pigeonholed. I'm scared that I'm going to put something out that's kind of shitty. And then it's going to be on someone's skin for a long time. And the ones that we did get done, we put some really cool ink on some really cool skin. And everybody they worked with was amazing. I chose not to work with people that I didn't think. That was the lucky thing, was I was able to choose who I was going to work with. And so we did some really great projects. So if anybody that sees this on YouTube that I didn't design for, I loved it. And I did a great job for it. But I wasn't going to do any more. Because I hate it. And in fact, when I met with Keith and I met with Richie, and they gave me pizza, I was telling them their first, they mentioned it's about minimalism. And so everybody kind of went the elephant in the room, and it's like, well, let's do, you know, you want to do this minimal tattoo. You named it minimal, so talk about it, right? And I kind of sighed, I'm like, well, and they're like, they back off. They're like, oh, no. And I mean, I don't think I growled at them. Maybe I said, but I kind of, you know, I wasn't super hyped on it. And then they said, you know, well, it's too personal. And I said, no, that's the furthest thing from it. It's just, I'm kind of tired of doing these. And I'm even more tired about talking about it because I'm still getting emails that are saying, hey, can I interview about the tattoo? And I do, because what I try to do is I try to take them and I interject something else. And I say, yeah, the tattoo's cool, but let's talk about its core, why I told the story, things like that. Less about the lines, less about that stuff. And I'm ranting, and then Keith and Richie's eyes light up, and they say, there you go, that's your talk. And it was cool, because I realized, yeah, that's my talk. This is something I can just talk about and rant. And this is something that I spent the past 3 weeks cutting stuff out of, because this is something that I want to rant about, and I don't want to rant to you guys. I think I am. But I realized this is my talk, and I'll still use something that I have common ground with, something that I know really well, something that I still really love. I hated the thing, but I didn't hate the tattoo. I love the tattoo. It's one of the most important things to me, but I hated it. So I figured I'd use the tattoo, I'd flip it on his head, and I kind of use it as a catalyst to drive me into my speech. And I do that thing where I said, well, guess what? I hated it. I did it, and it was kind of effective. So now I realize I hated it, so I should stop my speech, but I'm not gonna, because I want to teach you guys something that I learned at least, right? And this is where I had a really difficult time coming up here and saying, do what you love what you do. Because it's the lamest thing you can tell somebody to do. It's stupid. I don't like that. I didn't want to do a poster. I didn't want to do an illustration about it. I didn't want to tell you follow your heart. But that's what it is, right? It's follow your heart. It's do what you love what you do. But it's not on a T-shirt. That's what I said. But I still can't bring myself to just saying that and being done. I have a computer science degree. I didn't really like it, but I still have a very logical way that I think. And I know that even in design, it needs to have supporting things that give it meat. It's not just art, it's not fluffy. And so even with my point of do what you love, I want to tell you why I feel that way. And so I break it down. And I knew, fact is, if I kept doing tattoos at the time, because I may do them again, and when I do, you guys should, because like tweeting people, you idiot, you said you'd never do a tattoo again, and you're posting one. But that's what I'm putting in this disclaimer. I may do them again because I may be excited about them again, but for now, I'm done. And if I did keep doing them, then I would very quickly realize that I'm never going to get another Behance front page. And I'm never going to get Wired magazine to write about me again. Because I'm never going to, I could already see that I started turning out these kind of cold, mechanical designs. I just wanted them done. I wanted the pressure off my shoulders and have it be done. And that was no good. And the reason that Wired picked up the article and the reason why all the other blogs did and people talked about it was because I wrote it from the heart. I designed it from the heart. I gave it meaning. I did all of that. So I stopped. And that's what I learned. If you're not doing what you love, you probably won't keep going. And so, well, here's the thing, like, okay, well, art and design, like, we need to do it, we need to live, we need to eat. Well, all of us, I think, are creatives. If you're not, then you probably are, and you don't realize it. And I think business people are creative the way they think. But if we're not doing something that we really love, then that sucks. But we can't always do exactly what we love. Sometimes we need to eat food, we need to pay rent, we need to do all these things. We need to buy iPhones. But the point is there's going to be a hard road and there's going to be an easy road. And the easy road is going to be take tattoos, make a bunch of money, have tattoo commissions lined up for, I'm so sick of saying the word tattoos, there's no other word to say art. But you know, there's that, and that's the easy road, and I'll get a little bit more popularity. People will follow me, people will dig it, it'll be cool, but I'll hate myself internally for the rest of my life type thing. And then there's the difficult road, which was saying, well, screw it, I'm not going to do these anymore, I'm going to take a leap of faith, I'm going to quit my job, I'm still going to be really nervous, but I'm going to make sure that I'm doing what I love, and I'm going to have fun doing it. And that's what I've done. You know, recently after Dad died, I did quit my job. And I did stick with wage point because they were enforcing fun in the workplace. They let me do everything. I was creative director. I got to do everything I'm talking about. But the other job just wasn't challenging me creatively. There wasn't enough room for me to expand. I loved the people I worked with, and they wanted me to do graphics and do creative, but I was doing spreadsheets, and they didn't have the room to grow because it was a small company, and they already had someone doing creative. So I took the hard road, and in this case, for saying facts, because I'm a computer scientist, I needed to open my store. I opened a shop, an online shop. I opened a Squarespace. But I started selling my artwork. I started selling prints, and it took a lot of time. It took a couple months, and it took a lot of hundreds of dollars, and maybe 1,000, 2,000. And I didn't take any work at the time because I needed to focus on this stuff. And it kind of sucks because when I launched it, it didn't blow up, and that's all right. Because I feel a lot happier having done that and learning something new, because there's too many things to learn. I still want to learn how to animate, I want to learn how to show better expression than just use for eyes. I want to learn all that stuff, and that wouldn't have happened. But I'm glad that it did happen with the tattoo shop. I learned a lot of stuff. I learned more than just design. I learned how to, spend a bunch of money and not sell anything and lose money. That's something I needed to learn how to do. And so that was the hard road. I took that hard road. I denied money, I denied work, I denied popularity. I did something I loved instead. I feel a hell of a lot better. I can promise you that I feel a hell of a lot better having done that. This other thing, having a hard time finding the way it kind of fits what I'm going to talk about. And I don't have a slide for it, because I thought of it later. But I guess it's another factor from the way that I live my life. I have another tattoo. And I got this years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And it says, don't karma to karma, just karma. Which, whatever it means, be nice, right? Don't just be nice because you want to be nice for no other reason. But that's the point, it's a bonsai tree. And I got a bonsai tree because this kind of ties into the idea of what you love. Bonsai trees are something that you clip. There's something that you grow. It's something that if you want a cascading bonsai tree to bend this way, you nurture it. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of effort. It's really difficult. But if you do it right, the tree will come out generally the way you want it to. It's about cutting out the fats. You cut out the fats. That's ridiculous. You cut out the fats. And you cut out the fats, and you get to where you want to be. And you have your life as your own bonsai tree. And so, for me, it felt like when Dad passed, there was one main thing that kept me away from feeling wronged. And that was knowing that Dad did what he loved. And it was difficult for him. But what he loved was having a family so much. And I don't use that as a cop-out. I really think that that's exactly what he wanted to do. And he had to work some pretty shitty jobs to do it. And he had to have a lot of different bad things happen. And if Dad had died when he had that 14-hour heart attack, I think that it would have been too soon. But these 7 months that we had together showed him, and it was the proof, that my family, my brothers, my mom, we really circled around him and proved to him that you did a good job. You worked your whole entire life to love us, and we love you twice as much, maybe. But I know that nobody's ever going to say, are you ready for your dad to die? And you say, let's do it. And nobody's ever going to say, hey, Kirk's dad, you ready to go? And he says, yep, I'm ready. But I know that he can see that he's done a fucking phenomenal job setting me up and lining me up and lining my family up and being ready for that. And that's because he didn't take shit and he did what he wanted to do and he raised his family. He did a damn good job doing so. And so Dad was successful despite his untimely death because he did everything that he wanted to. He did what he loved. He never wore a shirt about it, but he did. And so I don't know what I want to love. Right now it's design. It's not really tattoos. This is cool. I got sick of this after doing it for 3 or 4 hours. I don't know what I love. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But whenever something pulls me in that direction and it seems like it might be a little bit more difficult to do so, and I need to decline things like money or popularity or whatever it is, I'm going to make sure that I do it. And then the only thing that I hope that you guys take away is that, you know, if that happens to you, you do the same thing.
So, Shannon, do we have a little bit more time in this room? All right, so typically people want to do Q&A. If you need to rush, if you need to run out of here, go. Don't feel bad whatsoever. If people want to stick around and do Q&A, Kirk, are you cool with that?
Yeah.
Let's do that. I know that's what he was really looking forward to anyways. So, yeah, I'm going to let you guys take it away. If you have a question, just raise your hand. And Kirk, you kick, call on them, whatever you want to do. All right, I have a question. So obviously I kind of know your story, but as I was sitting kind of reflecting on it this morning in my frantic drive over here, I was thinking about, you don't talk about it a ton, but it's pretty fucking amazing that you quit computer science and you can do this 2 years after. It's amazing. I would hire you in 2 seconds if you could come join me. But you know, you talk about the design community so much. I'm wondering how much of this is mentorship and apprenticeship, because I come from an unconventional background, kind of similar, and I've felt that I owe my entire career to a mentor every step of the way. I'm wondering how much of that is this, if it's been hands-on, one-on-one with you, or if it's really been mentorship from the community. I'm just kind of curious your growth.
It's the damn internet. You know, so yeah, when I went to school, I figured
I like computers, other computers, that's cool, right? And I'm good at them. But very quickly after, I got into, what happened was I got into, my last class was web development and creating something and used I used whatever, I used crappy languages, and I was good at making databases and stuff like that, and that was fun, but it really got fun when I started creating the HTML for it. And then I started creating it, and I was like, oh, well, let's make it nice, let's make colors, and then I started doing CSS for it. And then I was like, oh, the front end part is the best part. And then that's kind of where it started to branch. Like, I finished, and I was making websites, and then I decided, I don't want to make websites, I want to make colors on the website. And then I realized, I can inject my illustrations, which I haven't created yet. But I was like, well, I can make illustrations, so I can start injecting them. And that's when I started illustrating more, rather than having to worry about going out and finding that type of stuff. And then it just kept going, and then it turned into like, I have things I want to do. I want to make children's illustrations. I want to make stickers. I want to make t-shirts and stuff like that. That's really where that came from. And the reason I was able to do it without sounding, my advice to that would be like, if you want to do it, just do it. Like, just work really hard, and like, don't go as overboard as I did, because I know that my family and my friends like really commend the amount of dedication and effort I put into it, but sometimes maybe it's a little overkill. It's like 24 hours a day, but it's also like, my work is my playtime, and so when all I have to do is do exactly what I love, I get better at it very quickly. And a lot of it was online, a lot of it was tutorials. It started with like, bookmark 30 tutorials on Monday, and then work your crappy job, and then Friday, start doing the tutorials, and just doing whatever they say. Just do it exactly. You learn a lot. And it was, for me, it was Illustrator and it was Photoshop. And then I quickly, Saturday, I would take what I learned and I would try to turn it into something of my own using these techniques. And I did that for like a year straight. I just kept doing it. And so a lot of what I owe it to is tutorials online. And that happened for a long time, and I think that put me at a spot where I was confident enough to reach out to other people. And that was amazing. Nobody has ever been anything but extremely, extremely kind of how I feel today. Everybody being really open-armed and showing me and realizing that like there's no secrets. Like, nobody should be hiding how to use Photoshop. It's just a tool. It's the same thing with like a carpenter. I don't think someone would hide the way they use their hammer. It's all about, using the tool to extract these ideas. So it's a lot of internet, it's a lot of people, but it's been a lot of great feedback, but that's been more recent than anything. It's been, at first it was really kind of a wonder game, and it was just grinding to it.
Along that line, do you do any mentoring with other illustrators, with other designers? Because ahead of your department where you're at now, how many designers do you have? Zero. So, yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to see that some people are interested in that sometimes, and a lot of it is maybe the way that you guys feel of like, who wants to learn from me, right? And that's the way that I feel. So there's a lot of confidence that I need to gather in that I don't necessarily have, because honestly, it's just like thinking about it. It's like, that shirt used to be blue, and I was like, let's try another color, and I just keep mucking about for another half hour until it looked better. So there's a lot of confidence that I don't have in mentoring, but I have kind of more recently started. I've never declined anybody, but people have been reaching out and I've been doing it, and it's really awesome because you learn a lot. You learn maybe twice as much that you put out just like the speech of trying to teach you guys something. So I learned a lot about myself. So I don't really do that, but I do want to do that, but I don't have the confidence to do that necessarily.
Yeah, do it.
So as far as your process goes, how much of it is traditional and how much of it is digital? Because you mentioned sketches earlier.
This was quickly done, just for the sake of getting it done. Generally, my process, is, I wish it was more analog than it is digital. But being 100% honest, it's like it usually starts with like kind of a crappy pencil in a moleskin,
and then it's an iPhone picture, and then it's like a Wacom sketch in Photoshop, and then it brings it in. And a lot of stuff that I do is these textures, and I really love dry brushes right now, and I love gritty kind of analog looking things. I like people to think that I'm doing something in paint, but I'm not. But a lot of the textures and the resources that I use, at first I was always using stock stuff and brushes, and I quickly got discouraged because my stuff looked too, I could quickly say that person used the same texture that I use. So I've started, I really try to take that into it, and I try to do it differently every single time because that helps me learn. But this is all digital, but the brushes and the grip and stuff is traditionally done and digitalized and then repurposed and used. So mainly digital.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. It's a beautiful blend of digital and what looks traditional.
That's the goal. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You said that design isn't all cute and fluffy, and I think that you tied that in a lot with your illustrations. Can you say something a little bit about your illustrations minus the cute and fluffy parts, the color and the texture?
So for things like cartooning or character illustration, I try to take a lot of inspiration from like that mid-century modern era of cartooning of the kind of 30s, 40s, 50s, where people change and realize like more detail isn't necessarily good. And so when I'm doing these kind of things, I try to strip it down to its bare essentials as much as possible. And I try to tell the story as concisely as possible. So there's the cute and the fluffy of the texture and of certain things, but I think this also tells a great story just in its expression that I guess I kind of look a little bit more like I was stupid, but this is quickly down. I kind of want to be peeking through my eyes a little bit more. But I still think just showing motion and body and really going the extra mile with that type of stuff makes all of the difference. And if you can finish an illustration and look at it, you should be able to break it down, not much more. And it should still hold its value, just like a logo or something like that. And so for me, with illustration, I try to carry those ideas forward of, well, it should have its core essentials, it should have a silhouette that should be unique. If this was just black, you would still see it somebody kind of going like this. So I try to carry traditional design. That's what I say a lot, is that I'm not a great illustrator. If you gave me a bunch of paint or charcoal and stuff, I wouldn't do a great job. But what I do is I take my computer science background, so I have a logical thought and I have a well-organized workflow, and then I take my designer background, which is what 6 months of knowing what I'm doing, and I put them together with illustration, and I try to tell something that's a little bit more appealing for commission work, to be an artist for hire, because it's easier for me to tell a story. I think if you went to certain artists that are amazing at what they draw, they might not be able to quickly and concisely tell a story that you can look at quickly to do. They'll paint a beautiful mural, but I think to answer your question is, I try to strip everything down and make sure it still holds its value, and then I can build it back up because I know that it's stable. So I try to do some kind of stability to this. Yes?
I recently started getting into the illustration. Most hardest part for me is picking the colors. Now, I just find I go mad picking the colors, changing the colors. I just don't get it.
Me either. So it's tricky. I mean, I rely a lot on multiplies and color burns and overlays and stuff to get these sort of textures, which make me, that takes care of a lot of it. But then at my core, I try to always use a limited color palette. Again, that kind of comes from the design part. Try to use a limited color palette. And I've read a lot about color theory. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. There's all these different monochromatic and trichiatic and all those things that you guys are like, well, you idiot. But it doesn't make much sense to me. But so I don't really use that much theory. I just play, and I just keep guessing until it works. And the flesh tone, it could be blue and it could work if the shirt was green or whatever. It's really just a matter of playing a lot, and then cheat. You know, take a photo and color dab in, and then pull it away from the saturation. And you know, I use a lot of muted colors and stuff like that. But it's kind of guesswork for me. But I think keeping a limited color palette is probably the number one thing that I can come up with.
One more time, round of applause for Kirk.